Let me guess. You like Star Wars. You know, I've been in other movies. But you don't care about those, do you? I have one thing to say to people like you. I like Star Wars, too. Care to join me?
Thank you. My friend Leonard said if I bothered you while you were eating, you'd think I was a creepy stalker.
Well, your friend Leonard sounds like a real weenie.
He is, Mr. Earl Jones. He is.
Greetings, Bucketheads. Megar Tagar. Welcome to our 274th James Earl Jones eulogizing episode of Mandovision. I am your host, Nargai Tom. Thank you so much for checking out our small independent Star Wars podcast. And it is a somber day in the world of Star Wars and in the world of cinema in general, because we lost an icon, a legend, a giant of cinema with the passing of James Earl Jones yesterday on September 9th. And I would be remiss if we didn't spend a little time today talking about the great man and his contributions to some of my favorite things that exist on film, DVD, however you want to view it. Like the man, the content in today's terms that the man created was off the charts, immeasurable, and not to be forgotten. James Earl Jones brought, in my opinion, he brought gravitas, he brought presence, he brought the thunder whenever he was on screen. And that's not to say that James Earl Jones always was in the best movies ever. No one's perfect. He's been in some duds. But when James Earl Jones showed up, you paid attention. He commanded your attention. You sat up in your seat and you gave the man your full attention. I mean, I don't even know how to say it. I mean, the man, that is what the man commanded from an audience. And he had earned that over the years. And, you know, we're not going to spend a lot of time, you know, I'm not going to read his biography or anything like that. You know, this is the kind of show I wish we had done for Carl Weathers when he passed, because Carl Weathers was another important actor of my youth that I wish I had the opportunity to sort of highlight his works after he had passed. But for better or worse, James Earl Jones' passing happened to coincide with when I was about to record a new episode of the podcast. So we are able to spend some time talking about the man and what he did. And again, this is a Star Wars podcast, so I don't think we would be out of line by talking about him as Darth Vader. Obviously now, you know, almost 40 something years since Star Wars A New Hope came out, he is the voice of Darth Vader. There can be no other. There are no imitators. The man set the standard for that character, so much so that Disney bought his voice so that they could, whenever they go back to the well and do new Darth Vader stuff, they have James Earl Jones' voice catalog to make it happen in this day of deep fake technology and all the other things that go along with that. And again, I had a hard time getting mad about that, as much as I have sort of put my heels in the ground about AI acting and AI technology. uh, taking control of the cinema, you would be hard pressed to find someone to be Darth Vader in the current climate of Star Wars. Now, that's not to say that if the reboot that Reagan and I speculated about several weeks ago ever came to fruition, that would be a different story. But that doesn't seem to be what Disney wants to do. That doesn't seem to be what many fans want to have happen, anyways. So it's nice to know that James Earl Jones will always be the voice of Darth Vader. We don't have to worry about some other voice actor who sounds kind of sort of like James Earl Jones trying to do it. We've had that over the years. If you're in my age bracket, you'll remember several video games, where they got a guy to talk, through his hands and sound like Darth Vader. It doesn't work. It's not as good. James Earl Jones brings the thunder. I remember seeing Star Wars for the first time. It was the early 80s. And we were watching, I think, a VHS tape of Star Wars at a friend's house. And you just hear that voice. You saw the imagery of Vader coming through into the Tantive Forest, the rebel blockade runner, from the Star Destroyer. And, image-wise, you're captivated by what David Prowse brings to the character. He has a presence about him, and that's not to be underscored, because it's David Prowse and James Earl Jones who bring Darth Vader to life. Let's not forget that. But you can watch the clips on YouTube of Prowse reading the lines, and it's not the same. Is it bad? I'm not going to go there. I don't want to go there. But James Earl Jones brings a certain something, a certain level of intimidation, of fear to the way he delivers these lines, especially in A New Hope, that give the character massive weight, just incredibly massive weight, so that you realize that even though, as the argument over the years has been made, in Episode 4, Vader's kind of sort of Tarkin's henchman, right? He's kind of sort of Tarkin's lackey. But having James Earl Jones bring that voice it gives you the wherewithal to understand that Vader is more than that. Like, this is a character that you want to get to know more about. You're intrigued, you're fascinated, you want to know the story, like, who is the person behind the helmet? And I think a lot of that is from James Earl Jones's performance as Darth Vader. Obviously, it changes, it grows through the course of the original trilogy, Empire Strikes Back, delivering the line that still sends chills down my body. The no, I am your father. It's just that moment there, that for the young child that I was, having never seen a movie do that kind of twist, have that kind of reveal, that was a formative moment for me. And James Earl Jones gave that to me. He is forever burned into my brain for that moment. And then, of course, you get to the Vader in Return of the Jedi, the one who's returning to the light, who's standing up against the Emperor. And it's all just fascinating, amazing stuff. And there will be many podcasts, many blog posts, many articles and features on the news about James Earl Jones since yesterday into today into tomorrow, for the rest of time, of what he brought to Star Wars. And it's never to be forgotten. It's never to be ignored or dismissed, because he brought weight, he brought presence in a way that I think, if the film didn't have that, and again, let's talk about Star Wars in the sense that, like, Star Wars in many ways is a miracle. It's a miracle of filmmaking, of getting the right people at the right time to give the right performances, and for a visionary director to push technology forward enough to bring these things to life. It's this wonderful combination of so many elements. And again, I don't wish to spit on the grave of David Prowse, but bringing in James Earl Jones to voice Darth Vader gave it weight, much like having Alec Guinness be Obi-Wan Kenobi, much like having the cast that they had. I'm blanking on his name. The freaking Tarkin himself. I'm blanking on his name. Brought weight to the picture and helped kind of legitimize it in many, many senses. Now, again, James Earl Jones not always in the best movies. You can go through his IMDb and you will find plenty of, oh, I bet he needed a paycheck there, or whatever, but don't do that. Don't be dismissive of the man. He chose the roles for whatever reason he chose them for, and that's his prerogative. And but Star Wars, that's the one, right? Like, that's the one that's gonna stay with the majority of us in the world. He is the voice of Darth Vader for now and all time, and that is to be commended and applauded and cheered and remembered. I do want to mention a couple of the other roles that also were important to me in my youth, and to this day they are in movies that I watch and rewatch still to this day. Obviously, Thulsa Doom in Conan, the first Conan, the best Conan movie. A wonderful performance. Maybe a tad campy, maybe a tad over the top, but again, James Earl Jones brings gravitas, and it's awesome. Watch it. I mean, you're like, watch it now, and you're just like, why is James Earl Jones in this movie? It's kind of fun that way to watch that and realize that. Another film that he's in that is of import to me, that is in regular rotation, something I watch consistently through the years, is Field of Dreams. His speech about baseball, his rapport, his back and forth with Kevin Costner's character in that movie, I find to be infinitely delightful. James Earl Jones sells the magic of that movie as well, until James Earl Jones shows up, it's about crazy Kevin Costner as Cornfield and the disembodied voice of Ray Liotta. James Earl Jones sells the rest of that movie to you, the idea that you're watching ghosts play baseball. James Earl Jones makes that movie real and tangible in a way that I don't think anyone else could have. He is absolutely pivotal for that movie to work. Another performance that I enjoyed, Hunt for Red October, one of the best thrillers of its time, and a movie that I watch constantly, rewatch it constantly. Love James Earl Jones in The Hunt for Red October. And of course, love James Earl Jones as the King of Zamunda in Coming to America. It really I can't even with Coming to America. It's one of the greatest comedies of all time. And anyone who wants to say it's not, you can come over here and I'll slap you right across the face, because you are wrong. You are wrong, sir. So the passing of a true cinematic icon today. But obviously for the purposes of this podcast, we focus on his contributions to Star Wars, his contributions as Darth Vader, which will now live in infinity, because whenever there's a Vader appearance now in Disney Plus shows or in the movies or video games, they have access to the library of James Earl Jones's voice, and it feels appropriate. It feels like his legacy, and I am really happy about that. I really am glad that his voice will be Vader for till the end of time. That makes me very, very, very happy because, again, Star Wars is something that is monumental to me. It is something that is part of who I am. And knowing that James Earl Jones will always be part of it gives me a certain level of happiness. We've lost actors from this series before: David Prowse, Kenny Mayhew, Peter Mayhew, Kenny Baker, and several others, throughout the years, and of course Carrie Fisher, not to be neglected. I was going to get to Carrie in a minute. But it wasn't until we started kind of got to Carrie Fisher's death that it was like it became very, very real that soon these actors would not be able to be these characters anymore, and we saw that with Leia, with Carrie Fisher's passing, and we weren't doing this podcast when Carrie passed, so more memorializing her, eulogizing her wasn't a thing. It actually happened. I was overseas when Carrie Fisher passed, and I was completely gutted. I spent a night in a hotel room in Switzerland, just watching Carrie Fisher videos, and trying not to sob uncontrollably. So I wasn't quite as bad today, friends. I was a little bit more composed than that. But obviously Leia is a character that's going to be hard to ever replicate again. Same thing for Mark Hamill and Harrison Ford and Anthony Daniels and all these guys who are intrinsic to the original trilogy. But knowing that James Earl Jones now has sort of cemented his legacy in a way, in a very tangible way, where he will never be forgotten, is very, very cool. He's achieved a level of immortality that few have in the world, because we won't just remember him for his films that he was in, but we'll now still have his voice with us for all time. Obviously The Lion King, Mufasa. I neglected to mention the CNN ads back in the day. I mean, James Earl Jones was a big part of all of our lives for so many, many years. And his passing, again, we pay the deepest of respects, the most humblest of tributes is this podcast. One of many, I'm sure, that are coming out from all the other Star Wars shows that exist on the internet. And I suspect we are all of the same opinion that James Earl Jones, beloved, will be missed, but will never be forgotten. And I couldn't be happier about that. And so you may have noticed I opened the episode with a very non-traditional Mandovision clip, because in recent years, James Earl Jones has done several things that I have just found to be insanely funny. And one of those was his appearance on The Big Bang Theory back in the day. Him hanging out with Sheldon for the entire episode, them going to Tijuana on the Ferris wheel. It's completely ridiculous, but it's what every single one of us as a fan wants to have happen if we got to meet James Earl Jones in a restaurant. We want him to tell us that he likes Star Wars too. We want him to invite us to sit down. We want him to invite us to go on the Ferris wheel on Santa Monica Pier. James Earl Jones is an absolute hoot in that episode. I highly recommend it, even if you're not a fan of The Big Bang Theory. Find the episode with James Earl Jones. I believe it's in season 7, maybe episode 14 of season 7, if memory serves, and check that out. Another thing he did, and I was sort of shocked to find out this was almost over 10 years ago now, was a series of commercials he did with Roddy McDowall as they read text messages to each other in voices of sheer, again, magnitude, gravitas, import, however you want to say it. And that will be the clip that we take this show out on. Again, this is a small, short episode of the podcast, but it felt appropriate to pay tribute to the man. I don't have much else to say that you won't see anywhere else, that you won't hear anywhere else. I never met James Earl Jones. I just know the impact that he, as an actor, has had on me, as a fan of cinema, as a fan of film. And so we pay tribute to him for his contributions to not just Star Wars, but to all of cinema, to all of movies and stage and theater and everything the man touched. He brought absolute presence and grace to, and by all accounts was just a good human being. And for that we celebrate the man. We pay the most humblest of respects, and we say, rest in peace, sir. Rest in peace. All right, Bucketheads, we're going to give you a moment of silence. We're going to get out of here. We'll be back next week. Here's a moment of silence, and then we're going to play a little bit of that Sprint ad that makes me laugh so much. Thanks, Bucketheads. We'll be back very, very soon. Rest in peace, James Earl Jones.
Ryan is a total hottie McHotterson.
Avi, he's amazeballs. He's like the hottest hottie that ever hottied.
He's like a hottie times infinity plus another infinity, and his smile is totes adorbs.
Totes my goats. It's cray adorbs.
Totes my goats.
This is the way.
This is the way. This is the way.